Hey, what's up guys? Back again with another video. In this episode, I'm going to show you how to do the first Halloweeny challenge. So, if you don't know about this, in our Discord server, we sometimes do challenges, every once in a while to allow you to test your skills, in any language. And we wanted to do something special for Halloween because last year we did something special. So, we thought that for Halloween this year, we would have a challenge, a couple of challenges per week in October, and yeah, the person who completes the most challenges would get a special reward for that, the Champion of Halloween role, and some points and all that. So each challenge that you complete successfully, you'll get points for. And yeah, so anyway, this was the first challenge. So Halloweeny challenge 1. And it's not too hard, but it's pretty tricky if you don't pay attention with the document here. So by the time you're watching this challenge will be over, but make sure you join our Discord server so that you can, be there for other challenges that we do. Just join it. You can ask for the challenge ping role, so you'll be pinged when new challenges are added. And yeah, pretty cool. So we're gonna try this challenge in this video. What I'm gonna do is first is read the document, explain how it works, and I want you to pause the video and see if you can do it on your own. I have a link for this document, by the way. But yeah, pause the video and see if you can do the challenge on your own, and then unpause it, and then we will continue, and I'll show you how to code it out. And of course, for anything in programming, there's multiple ways to do it. So I'm going to code it one way. If you have a better way of coding it, then try it out. That'd be great. So see if you can make something better than what I'm doing. Okay, maybe something more efficient or just fewer lines of code. Okay, so let's try this out. All right, so it's Halloween soon, and Cody likes to make his preparations well in advance. He wants to go shopping for decorations today, but due to being weak at maths, he's not sure if he has enough time. Given a schedule, determine if he will be able to go shopping. You are provided Cody's schedule, which consists of n tasks. Each of these tasks is defined by its starting time and its ending time. Cody will be free to go shopping if he does not have any task for an interval of 2 or more hours. Okay, cool. So the input format, so the first line contains an integer n, which is the number of tasks that Cody needs to perform today. And the next n lines contains two integers, each separated by a space, the start time and the ending time. Okay, simple enough. So if you go down here, it says input 5 means that there's going to be 5 lines of different tasks, starting times and ending times. So you got to figure out how to do that using whatever language you choose to do it with. And I'll be doing all of these challenges in Java, by the way, so it doesn't actually matter which one you use. Any major programming language will be fine. So C++, C, Python, whatever, okay? But I'm a Java developer primarily, so I like to use Java. And this is a Java channel primarily, but we do other things. All right, so input format, now we got output format. So print yes if Cody will be able to go shopping, otherwise no. Great. So notes, for this problem, a day starts at number 0 and ends at number 24, which should align with how time works in real life. I'll explain that in a second. So some tasks may have overlapping times. So for example, this task here, 9 and 12, goes inside of 7. They overlap with 7 and 15. So you got to account for that with whatever code you're making. So they're not completely separate. They can overlap. So be wary of that. Accept the input from standard input and output to standard output. So if you're using a major programming language, you'll know what these things are. Hopefully, if you've done any I/O stuff, but it's pretty much the basics, right? Just print it, and then it'll automatically go to your standard output, and then input from the standard input. So whatever the way of inputting is for your programming language of choice, that's essentially all that means. So do not output unnecessary prompts such as enter in. So just keep your output limited to this and your input limited to this. Don't spice it up with fancy input. Okay, all right, so here's some explanations for these two in case you need it. You can skip this part if you don't want to listen to me talk. Just go ahead and skip this part and then read it and then try the challenge out on your own. But so example 1, you put 5, and then the next line is 9 to 12. So I'm doing something from 9 to 12. Next line is 1 to 6. So I'm doing something from 1 to 6. 7 to 15, 15, 20, 20 to 23, and no is the output. So this means that there is no free time for this. So when you put all this together, I don't have any free time available. And the way of telling if I have free time available is if I have 2 or more, an interval of 2 or more hours that I'm not doing a task. So you have to look at this and determine if I have free time or not, okay? So in sample 1, Cody's free for an hour from 0 to 1. So you start work at 0. There's no 0 in here. There can be, but there's no 0 in this one. So you start working at 0, and then we have a task from 1 to 6. So 1 is taken. So you're free from 0 to 1. Okay. And then an hour from 6 to 7. So if you look on here, it stops at 6. So this task stops at 6. So you're not working at 6. You're stopping at 6 when the clock hits 6. And then you start a new task at 7. So from 6 to 7, you're free. Okay. And then an hour from 23 to 24, same thing. Well, actually not the same thing. So you stop working at 23. So 24 is the last. There's nothing greater than 24 hours. So it's a 0 to 24. So you can't work at 24 hours and 23 minutes, right? You would just go to the next day. So you stop at 24. So if he stops working this task at 23, this means he works from 23 to 24. That's 1 hour. So you have 1 hour free time there. And because of that, each of these are only 1 hour of free time. Put together it's 3 hours, but they're not consecutive. So it's in total, there's no 2 or more free hours. So he can't go shopping. He doesn't have time to go. I'm talking about myself in the third person. So yeah. Okay. Sample 2, I do have free time in this one. So 3, 8 to 13, 2 to 7, 15 to 20. And then the output is yes, because I do have time to shop. So in sample 2, Cody's free for 2 hours from 0 to 2. So 0 to 2. All right. So there's no 0 here. So he's not working. So 0 to 2. So he starts working not working, but he's doing a task from 0 to 2. So that's 2 hours total. So already then you have satisfied the condition of having free time, so you can go shopping because there's 2 hours consecutively to do something. And then 1 hour from 7 to 8. Okay, 7, 8 right there. They don't have to be in order, by the way. So 7 to 8. And then 13 to 15. All right. And 4 hours from 20 to 24. So you start working at 20. So you're working on the 20th hour, the 21st hour, the 22nd hour, and the 23rd hour. And again, it stops at 24. So 4 hours total. All right. So challenge information, it can be completed with any programming language of your choice. Again, by the time you're seeing this, the challenge will be over. So you can't submit it for grading. But if you want to, you may be able to DM Nuffin, this guy on Discord, and he can let you know. Maybe if he wants to grade it, he can let you know if you did it correctly. He's a staff member in my Discord community. All right. So now I've got a Java project here, just an empty public main method, and this is where we're going to do the challenge at. So pause the video now and see if you can do the challenge on your own. It's okay if you can't do it. It's kind of tricky, but it'll be easier than some of the other ones, so it's a good starting point. So unpause when you're done, or just continue watching if you want to see how I do it, okay? All right, so first step, let's write out what our mission is, what we're trying to do. So our mission at the moment will be to figure out if there is a gap of 2 or more hours free, all right, given the input. So the first step, we're going to gather input from the user. Let me zoom in a little bit for you guys. There we go. I'm trying to make sure that my face cam does not block the screen. Just yell at me if that's the case. So gather input from the console or just user. So to do that, there's different ways of gathering input in Java, but one of the easiest ways is with the scanner class. So scanner is equal to new scanner. And then for the parameter here, you're just going to put the standard input stream, so standard system.in. And this will allow you to get input from the console. So like the document said, the first input that you're going to get from the user is the amount of tasks that they have done. So that means that you'll know how many times to loop, right? So we're going to get the first one. So we're going to say integer number of tasks is equal to scanner.next integer. Since we're storing an integer, we're going to do next integer. So it's going to scan the console for that. And just so you can see how this works, we're going to output a number of tasks. Okay, so we're going to run this now. And so now it's empty, but you can see that you can click here and type stuff. So we're going to put an integer of 3. And now it just prints out 3 because we told it to print out 3. So simple enough, right? So because there's 3 tasks, that means we have to loop for the amount of tasks that there are. So each line will be a starting and an ending number, showing from when they start working, when they stop working. So we know we need to loop that many times. So for was a simple for loop for this. So integer I is equal to 0. I is less than number of tasks, I plus plus, so you're looping however many there are. So for each iteration of that loop, what we're going to do is go ahead and grab the starting and the ending time from the input and store it into a variable. So integer start time, or start hour makes more sense because we're not doing minutes. So start hour is equal to scanner.next integer, and then integer stop hour, or end hour, is equal to scanner.next integer. Okay, and then we have to think about how we're going to do this. How are we going to like figure this out? So essentially we have to take those starting and ending hours for each of the amounts of tasks that they're doing, put them together somehow, and figure out if they have 2 consecutive hours of free time so that we can see if Cody has enough time to go shopping. I'm Cody, by the way. And you know, there's a couple ways to do it. I think when I first thought about this, I thought I would take it and then store the stop hour and a start hour into some kind of custom object, and then order them depending on their start and stop time. But because of the way that it works, they can overlap, right? So because they overlap, you can't really do that unless you're changing the objects depending on if there's an overlap in whatever you input next. So I was thinking, you get the input, put into some sort of array, maybe order it, and then you could check for free time in between those different values in the array, and that should work actually. But another really efficient way to do this is probably to have an array of booleans or an array of integers 1 or 0, and then you could say if a slot is 1, that means they're working during that hour, and if a slot is 0, they're not working during that hour. Okay, so that's how I'm going to do this, I think. So we're going to do integer array schedule, if I can type it, is equal to new integer array, and we're going to say it's 24 elements. So because there's 24 hours in a day, right? So for each of these, we know that the start hour and the stop hour can be between 0 and 24. So this means that they can start at working at 0 and stop working at 24. So this accounts for all of the hours that they can input, essentially. Okay. And the cool thing about this is because an array is 0 based, it'll be from 0 to 23. And that actually helps us out because they can't work on the 24th hour. They can stop working at the 24th hour because anything beyond the 24th hour would be a new day, and we're not accounting for days in this program. So great, that's perfect, because now if for example, if this first input here was like 0 to 6, this means that in our array we can fill slots 0 through 6 or 0 through 5, because they start working at 0 and they stop working at 6, meaning that they're not working the 6th hour, they're working the 5th hour and stopping at 6. So you have to be careful about that. Okay, so let's see if we can do that. So let's fill slot 0, or let's fill the starting hour slot, and then let's fill the stop hour slot. Or not the stop hour slot, but the slot before that, because they don't work that hour, okay? You have to be very careful about that. So we're going to do schedule start hour is equal to 1, meaning that they are working at that time. And then otherwise, schedule stop hour minus 1, because again, they're not working that hour, they're working the hour before it, is equal to 1 as well. And then we want to fill the slots in between. All right, so that should be simple enough. We just got to loop through each of the slots in between. But first, let's make sure that there's actually some slots to run through. So we're going to do if stop hour minus start hour is greater than 0. This means that there should be a difference in the amount of slots between the two, so that there's actually slots to fill in, so we're not wasting time, running this. So for example, if it was again like 0 to 5, then you would fill 1 to 4, hopefully. But if it was like 4 to 5, then there's nothing to fill in. So there's nothing in between those two, right? Because these two are already filled in themselves. So anyway, now that we have checked to see if there's anything to fill in, we're going to make a for loop to loop through each of those things. So for integer j, we already used I up here. I think we can reuse it in Java, but we're just going to do j for clarity. So integer j is equal to start hour plus 1. And the reason we're starting at the start hour plus 1 is because the start hour has already been filled in above to 1, right? So there's no point in starting at that point already. So then after that, we're going to do as long as j is less than the stop hour minus 1. Again, it's minus 1 because above we already filled the minus 1, the stop hour minus 1 to 1 because that's the hour before that they're working. So we're doing j is less than stop hour minus 1, so they will fill all the slots up to that point, not that point. So in a way, I guess that would be the same thing as doing if j is less than or equal to j, or is less than or equal to j underscore equals stop hour is minus 2. So it would fill all the way up to that stop hour point. And then j plus plus to go to the next slot. All right. So after that, just for testing purposes, we're going to output each of those in between slots so that we can make sure that we're looping in the right area. Because, because of the logic of this, we could be messing it up somehow. So I just want to be clear on what we're looping through. So let's test this out. Yeah, okay. So let's do this. So run that. And first it's going to ask for the amount of tasks. So we're going to say 3. And then we're going to say 0 to 5. So there we go. So that means that they work at 0. They start working at 0. They stop working at 5. So that means that 0 and 4 should already be filled in by these two lines here. Okay? Because 4 is the last hour that they're working. 5 is the hour where they stop. So this means that the slots in between that we need to spend time filling in is 1, 2, and 3. That's in between those two. So this loop here works as we want it to work. Now, after that, instead of printing out, we actually want to fill it. So we'll do schedule j is equal to 1. So now everything in between these two slots here should be filled to 1. And by the way, the entire array will be 0 by default since we're not initializing it with initial values. That's just because of how integers work. So now this entire for loop here, along with the inner for loop, should loop through each of the tasks, the starting and stop times, and then fill in the slots in between those two. And then, and now we're just going to output the result of that so we can make sure that it works before we test to see if they have free time or not. So system.out.println schedule, and we're just going to wrap it with arrays.toString so we can actually see it. Because if you just print out a schedule by itself, then I think that's the same thing as just printing out an object. So it'll just give you the memory address. So we're going to do 2. So we're going to say from 1 to 9, and then from 5 to 11. So here we go. This is the results. So this should bear a schedule of when we're working. So first thing first. So we start at 1, then we end at 9. So that'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, and it looks like, oh, it continues, right, because it's overlapping, right? So we have another one here. It says it starts at 5 and ends at 11. So where's 5? So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it stops at 10 because that's the last hour that they're working, and then 11 is still 0. So perfect. So this means that the entire time that they're not working, I keep saying that's when they're working. It's just that they're doing a task at that time, but working is an easy way for me to think about it. So from 1 to 11, or excuse me, from 1 to 10, they are quote unquote working. So they're busy doing something, so they don't have enough time to go shopping. What I'm going to do now to output the answer, you have to output yes if they have free time to go shopping, and then no if they don't have free time to go shopping. The way I'm going to figure out whether it's yes or no is by looping through each element of the array. And if an element is 0, it's going to check to see if the next slot after that is 0. If that's true, then they have free time, because the conditions for free time, so you put yes if there's free time, is if they have 2 or more consecutive hours of free time. They're not doing a task, right? So if there's a 0 followed by another 0, that automatically satisfies the condition, and we can just break out of the loop and print yes, okay? And I'm just going to leave this output statement here just so we can see how it's working internally. Okay, so we're going to make a for loop here, another one, and we're going to say for integer k, so I, j, k in the alphabet, integer k is equal to 0, k is less than schedule.length, and then k plus plus. So we're looping through the entire array, so checking each element one by one. So if schedule k, so if that element at slot k is equal to 0, then check to see if schedule k plus 1 is also 0. So let me break this down in a second. First, let's break, and then we'll have a boolean. So boolean has free time is equal to false by default. Okay, so we'll do has free time is equal to true, and then break out the loop because we already find the requirements. All right, so the way this works is we're going to loop through each element, like I said, and then if we find a 0 in one of the elements, we're going to check to see without re-looping if the next element is 0 as well. Because if we were to just loop again, then we would lose track if the one before that was 0 or not. So this plus 1 here just checks to see if the next element is also 0. And so if has free time, then we're going to output yes as the requirement state. Otherwise, output no. All right, so let's try this out and run it now. Boom. And let's use one of the sample things. We'll use one of these. We'll do both of these here. So I'm just going to move that to my other screen. And we're going to say 5, 9 to 12, 1 to 6, 7 to 15, 15 to 20, and 20 to 23. And we got an exception here. It says exception and thread main array index out of bounds exception, index 23 out of bounds for length 24. So this means that we're trying to access array element 24, but there is no array element 24. I mean, there's an element 24 because there's 24 elements in the array, but there's no index of 24 because an array is 0 based. That makes sense. So essentially, we know that for a fact that this array will loop 0 to 23, right? Because it's looping through the length of the array. But if schedule index is equal to 0 for the value, it's going to check to see if 24 is also equal to 0, right? That doesn't make sense because there is no 24, and we're going to get that index out of bounds exception. So that's kind of smart because it makes you think. So what we're going to do first is before we check that, we're going to check to see if k is not equal to 23, because that's the last slot in the array. So if it's not equal to 23, we're going to check to see if that's equal to 0, and then if the next one's equal to 0, perfect. Because even if 23 is 0, it doesn't matter because there's nothing that can follow after that. So it would have to be 22 and 23, not 23 and 24 for determining if they have free time or not. All right, so let's try this again and see that it hopefully works. So we'll do 5, 9 to 12, 1 to 6, 7 to 15, 15 to 20, 20 to 23. Boom, there we go. So this is the resulting array. Looks good. You can check it all if you want to, just to be clear. And then it says no. Perfect, because they don't have any free time. And that's the expected output on here, so no. Now let's try the second sample one. So we'll run this. So we get 3 total. And so 8 and 13, 2 to 7, and then 15 to 20. There we go. It says yes because we have 2 consecutive hours. And after that, we have 1 hour here, 2 hours here again, so that would also satisfy. And then 4 hours at the end, so that would definitely satisfy the conditions. So after that Boolean has been changed, we break out of the loop, and then we're using that to see whether to print yes or no. So perfect, easy enough, right? And there we go. So that's how you can complete the challenge. So we're getting the input, looping through it, setting the array, then checking the array to see if there's consecutive spaces for 0, and then yes or no is the final output. If you were able to figure this out using a different way, then let me know in the comment section below how you did it. Hopefully you were able to figure it out on your own. All right, I'm back real quick. I just found, I was told some simplifications I can make to this, algorithm that we've designed. And so let's get rid of this. We don't need the debug statement anymore. So because we're looping here in between the slots, we can actually just change this to start hour and then change this one to stop hour, and it will fill all of them in. Because what's the point of only filling in the slots in between and having this in front. You can just fill it all in at once. There's no need to fill those two individually and then loop through in between. You can just do all of it at once, right? So you can really just get rid of this. And then now, instead of filling only 1 to 4, you're filling 0 to 4. So there you go. And now it should do that. But also down here, instead of having to do k is not equal to 23 to make sure we don't get that index out of bounds exception, array index out of bounds exception, you could get rid of this and just change it to schedule length -1. So therefore, it's not going to ever get to 23 in the first place, because 23, again, doesn't matter if it's 0 or not, because there's nothing after that. So, okay, hopefully that makes sense. So we can just test this out one more time just to verify that. But always I'm not perfect, so there's always a better way to do things. I tried coming up with the best way to do it before I recorded this, but yeah, it's always helpful to be shown different ways by someone else. So 8 to 13, 2 to 7, 15 to 20, and we get yes still. Great. And then we'll do it one more time for the first one, so it should be no. So 9 to 12, 1 to 6, 7 to 15, 15 to 20, and 20 to 23. Boom, and we get no. So there we go. Still works, but much more simplified, and we cut down on needless statements. Alright, so that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. In the description below, I'll leave a link to the code for this episode so you can check it out. You can bookmark it, come back to it later. If you forget any concepts or you just want to review the concepts I taught in this video, I'll mark everything up with comments so you can come back and read the code without having to rewatch the video, although your reviews are greatly appreciated. So yeah, I'll leave a link for that in the description below, so make sure to check it out. And another thing is I'll leave a link to our Discord server. It's a big community for programmers. You can ask for help on your programming projects if you're stuck on something, or maybe you can get some new friends. If you don't have any friends, there's lots of people here. It's growing really fast. You can find lots of people who are passionate about the same things as you. For example, if you like Minecraft Spigot development, you can find lots of people who like that. If you like C++, if you like Java, if you like web development, it's a really, really big programming community. So feel free to join. There's a link for that in the description below. And the last thing I want to tell you is that if you want to support this channel, you can click the join button below this video, and you can join this channel as a member for as low as 99 cents a month, and you can cancel at any time. You get some cool perks like early access to all of my new videos, a cool rank on my Discord server like you see right here on the side, YouTube members, and also you get to see yourself on the screen like you see right now. So if that sounds cool to you, feel free to join. If you don't want to, that's fine. If you can't, that's okay too. I really just appreciate you watching the video anyway. And thank you. Thanks a lot. And that's it. So if you like this video, leave a like. If you want to see more, subscribe. And peace.